All right, let me get my timer ready here and we will get started. Okay, we'll go ahead and start with Ms. Garcia. Pre-trial matters?
Yes, Your Honor, just a couple of brief housekeeping matters. May we assume that all witnesses are constructively sworn?
Sure, unless there's any objection to that, Mr. Okolo?
No objections.
Okay.
And lastly, Your Honor, just because we're on Zoom, when it comes to exhibits and entering exhibits, would you like us to still go through all of the formalities and show the exhibit to the witness, direct their attention to it, or how would you like us to go about that?
That's really up to you. I am not going to, the only ones that I would say go ahead and show to the witness would be those that have been pre-admitted pursuant to the pretrial order. The rest of it, I think you would need to go ahead and, because we are assuming this is a bench trial, that's why we're kind of operating that this way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you'll still need to go through all the required predicate.
Okay. At this time, I have a couple motions in limine. I know that my opposing counsel also had a couple of housekeeping matters. Would you like him to go ahead and go with those or go into motions?
I guess housekeeping orders would be first.
Okay.
Good morning, Your Honor. Again, my name is Umokai Okolo, and today I have the privilege of representing Reese Taylor, also known as Coach Taylor, here in our community. Your Honor, just a couple of brief housekeeping matters, Your Honor. It's my understanding that it's because it's a Zoom call, it's going to be a little different. And so throughout the course of today's trial, there may be some impeachments. Now, I understand that normally Your Honor wouldn't necessarily see a document that one might be impeaching with, but for the purposes of today's trial, is it okay that we do impeachments by sharing a screen of what the document looks like for the witness and for clarity and to avoid disruption?
Yes. Yeah, we will assume that we are doing like an in-camera inspection or at the bench inspection, not in front of the witness.
Absolutely. And secondly, Your Honor, given the layout of my room, and I know opposing counsel's room, for the purposes of this Zoom call and this trial, is it okay if we make objections while sitting down to avoid disruption and for clarity in the microphone?
Sure.
And Your Honor, that's all the housekeeping matters I have. And like opposing counsel said, I have a couple of motions to eliminate after opposing counsel.
Okay.
Again, Your Honor, Rebecca Garcia representing the plaintiff in this case, Jordan Street, on behalf of the estate of Rory Street. This is a case against Reese Taylor, a soccer coach. It's alleged that the defendant's negligence during a practice on September 7th, 2018 caused Rory Street to experience heat exhaustion and ultimately caused Rory Street's death. I just have a couple of brief motions in limine. The first motion, Your Honor, is to bar any testimony regarding concerning any admission of a note from Jess Merriweather, a personal trainer at Waco High School. This note was found in the aisle of her classroom about a week before Rory Street's death. Ms. Merriweather has no basis to testify about this note, as she has no way to authenticate this note. She's not a handwriting expert. She cannot determine who actually wrote this note. There are two initials on the note in question.
A certain exhibit. Which exhibit are you referring to so I can have some context?
Let me get the exact number for you, Your Honor.
I believe you might be talking about exhibit 12, but I want to make sure we're all on the same page here.
Yes, Your Honor, exhibit 12.
Yes, that's correct, Your Honor.
Okay.
Miss Merriweather has two students with the same initials in her class, and therefore she has no way of knowing which student it was who actually wrote this note. We'll also hear no testimony from the named student in that note to know that the author actually ever sent it to the person who it was meant to go to. Therefore, this note will unduly prejudice my client, and it cannot assist you, the trier of fact, in any way.
Your Honor, while we believe that Ms. Merriweather's testimony does suffice for purposes of authentication under Rule 901, we actually don't intend on using that note throughout the course of today's trial, so it won't be an issue.
Okay. Is that just Ms. Garcia?
Yes, one more. That'll suffice, Your Honor. One more brief motion concerning any testimony from Ms. Merriweather, again, concerning seeing Rory Street with students who were considered the smokers, or any testimony alluding to Rory Street's reputation for using drugs. It's our opinion that the plaintiff might elicit, that the defendant might elicit testimony about that encounter to prove conformity. And therefore we ask that it be barred as evidence under Rule 404B1.
Your Honor, some of that testimony may come out throughout the course of today's trial, but we're not using that for action and conformity therewith, Your Honor. In fact, if I may proffer, Your Honor, throughout the course of today's trial, we're going to hear and see a toxicology report that proves that Rory Street had cocaine within his system on the day in question, Your Honor. Any testimony about who Rory hung out with and anything about if the individuals he hung out with did drugs simply goes to bolster that testimony and help us understand and give context of the state of mind Rory was in at the time he was using drugs for us to better understand what happened to Rory on September 7th of 2018.
I think in that case, then I'm going to deny the motion in limine, but we already entertain objections when the information is trying to be admitted.
Sorry.
Yes, Your Honor.
I
have no further motions in limine.
Okay, Mr. Arcolo, you have some motions in limine?
Yes, Your Honor. I have two motions to eliminate. The first, I have a good faith basis to believe that opposing counsel may elicit some testimony that would violate the Rule 407 under subsequent remedial measures, Your Honor. If I may proffer.
Sure.
I believe opposing counsel may elicit testimony about how Coach Reese and the trainer for Waco High School put up a tent for shade and provided Gatorade after this incident happened. We believe that's a violation of a subsequent remedial measure. They're trying to prove that Coach Reese should have and was negligent by not providing that beforehand, Your Honor. That's by definition a subsequent remedial measure, and we ask that be excluded.
Okay. Ms. Garcia?
Your Honor, we do not intend to offer any evidence of a subsequent remedial measure. At most, we might inquire into the possibility of a tent being put up, but we do not intend to ask whether or not any tent was ever put up.
You mean in the context of on the day of the incident that they could have put up a tent?
A tent could have been there, yes.
Okay. All right. Mr. Arcolo, is that okay with you?
Your Honor, that's okay with me. We just want to make it clear that no mention that a tent was put up or Gatorade was provided after the fact.
Sure. That's agreed, Ms. Garcia? Understood?
Yes, unless, Your Honor, we would argue unless Coach Taylor says that it wasn't possible to put up a tent, then at that point we would ask that we be allowed to impeach her with that subsequent remedial measure.
Understood. Okay, Mr. Second.
Yes, Your Honor. Secondly, we believe that opposing counsel may elicit testimony about Coach Reese's and Coach Taylor's previous job before working for Waco High School. Now, before working for Waco, Coach Taylor worked for a previous high school and ended up leaving that high school after an incident with a high school student that may have gotten physical, Your Honor. We believe that's in violation of Rule 404B, as it is a prior bad act being used to show action and conformity therewith.
Ms. Garcia, do you intend on using any of that testimony?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. As long as you do not, then I think we should be good on that motion as well.
And with that, Your Honor, the defense, we're ready to proceed to opening statements.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm also trying to keep up with time as we go here. So when I look down, that's what I'm doing. All right. With that, then I will call case number 18-CV-001-20 Street versus Taylor to order. Claims ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense? All right. Ms. Garcia, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Burma Road. Two words that can strike fear into the mind of any high school soccer player in Waco, Texas. Today, you're going to hear that Burma Road was like a tradition in Waco, a disciplinary coaching tactic that was passed from generation to generation of soccer players in Waco. And you'll hear that all of that changed on September 7th, 2018, when the defendant, Reese Taylor, tragically pushed high school senior Rory Street to her breaking point. Now, Rory Street had her whole life in front of her when it was cut short when she was just 18 years old. Rory attended Waco High School, where she was the star soccer player on the team. She was the best one on the team, and it wasn't even close. Rory had been playing soccer since she was a kid, and she was on track to play Division I soccer in college. Then, on September 7th, 2018, one practice wiped it all away. Today you're going to meet Aubrey Saracen, Rory's lifelong best friend and her teammate at Waco High School. Along with Rory, Aubrey played high school soccer at Waco for all 4 years. She was with Rory during those final moments of her life, and she's going to tell you everything that happened that day. It was scorching hot on September 7th, 2018. Over 100 degrees of sweltering Texas heat. Now, the defendant started soccer practice around 3:15 that afternoon. Like usual, the team was running a full scrimmage that day. Miss Saracen remembers that day because she was running Burma Road, the infamous Burma Road. Now, you're going to hear from Miss Saracen that this was a drill that Coach Taylor used to punish her players if they weren't playing right, if they weren't performing. The player would have to run 30 yards, then dribble a soccer ball 30 yards, shoot that soccer ball into an open goal, and then finally crawl back the 60 yards on their hands and feet to the starting point. The player would have to do this until Coach Taylor told him to stop. Sometimes it was once. Sometimes it seemed like it went on forever. Now, you're also going to hear that the defendant was pretty quick-tempered, and sometimes she would send players to Burma Road rather quickly, just like she did on September 7th, 2018. So by around 4:30 that afternoon, Miss Saracen had been running on Burma Road for about 15 minutes. She was maybe 20 yards from the practice field, and she heard some screaming from Coach Taylor. Coach Taylor was yelling at the top of her lungs. She was yelling at Rory. Miss Saracen heard Coach Taylor yell at Rory for missing passes and being out of position, just generally sloppy play. Now, this went on until the defendant finally told Rory, "Go and take your sorry butt to Burma Road. You're useless on the field, so you might as well run until you pass out." And that's exactly what happened. Rory went over to Burma Road and started running with Aubrey Saracen. But after a few minutes, Miss Saracen realized something was wrong. Rory just didn't look right. She looked pale, unusually pale. She said that she felt funny and she had chest pain. She was given no water breaks and there was no shade on the field. She was simply running in the scorching Texas heat, every step bringing her closer and closer to passing out. Now, Rory struggled through running Burma Road in that sweltering heat. The defendant's response? Changed the disciplinary tactic to inflict even more physical pain on top of the heat. So, Coach Taylor stopped the scrimmage and had all of her players line up in a line facing Rory. She then had Rory line up about 10 yards facing her players. On Coach Taylor's whistle, each player was supposed to run at Rory as fast as they could and slide tackle her to get the ball away from her. Now, this tactic had never been used in practice before. It had never been used on any player. And you're going to hear that slide tackles can get physical. The player who's performing the tackle usually ends up knocking the player that has the ball to the ground. And even worse, sometimes the cleats end up in the opposing player's hips. Despite this, the defendant went on with the drill. You'll hear that just before that first whistle, Rory looked lifeless. She had her hands on her hips. She was breathing heavily and moving slowly. She had just scrimmaged before running Burma Road. Now she was here, doing this slide tackling drill. But she wasn't given any water. She wasn't given any breaks. Now, on the defendant's whistle, the first player ran toward Rory at full speed, slid the ball away, and knocked her down. Now, what did the defendant do? She walked over to Rory and yanked her up by her jersey and put her on the starting line again. And again. And again. 15 times in total. 15 players running full speed at Rory and slide tackling her. On that 15th time, Rory just fell down. She was trembling. She was shaking. She was convulsing. She was lying on the turf in the hot Texas sun with no water after having no breaks. By the time the ambulance arrived that afternoon, it was too late. Rory had already died on the field. Now today you're going to receive the expert report of Dr. McConaughey. And his report's going to tell you that Rory died of heat exhaustion or heat stroke and nothing else. That at the time of the incident in question, it was about 105 degrees, sweltering heat, and that all of Rory's symptoms are consistent with heat exhaustion or heat stroke. Now, the plaintiff has the burden of proof in this case, Your Honor. We must prove by a preponderance of the evidence that, one, the defendant owed a duty to Rory Street and all of the other players who were on the field that day. And that duty was to conduct practice in a safe manner. Second, that the defendant breached that duty by not acting as a reasonable person would have acted in similar circumstances. And third, that breach by the defendant proximately caused Rory Street's death. Now, we expect the defense to try to convince you that Rory bears the blame for what happened. We expect them to try to convince you that a small amount of cocaine that was found in Rory's system is to blame for all of this. It's true, Your Honor. There was a small amount of cocaine in Rory's system. But even the defendant's expert is going to tell you that it was nominal. And we'll show you today that this had nothing to do with her untimely death. We'll show you today that it was the defendant, and only the defendant, and her violation of multiple guidelines for soccer practices. And the defendant is the one who bears total responsibility for this tragedy. At the end of today's trial, after you've heard all of the evidence in this case, Your Honor, we are confident that you will see that we have met our burden. And at the end of the trial, after the conclusion of the evidence, I will stand back up here and I will ask that you return the only verdict that the evidence supports in this case. The defendant, Reese Taylor, is fully liable for Rory Street's death. Thank you.
Opening statement from the defense, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
May it please the court and opposing counsel. Rory Street died suddenly and without warning because he used cocaine before practice on September 7th, 2018. This illegal and powerful drug made it impossible for Rory's body to cool down. And turned what would have been a normal and routine soccer practice into a sudden and fatal tragedy. What's most heartbreaking is that no one knew what Rory had done until it was too late. Good morning. Once again, my name is Kyle Kolo, and today I have the privilege of representing Reese Taylor. You know, hey, Reese, for a moment, can you just turn your camera on and wave hi to everyone so they see who you are? Now, before I tell you about what happened in today's case and how we got here, I got to tell you a little bit about Reese. Now, most people here in Waco don't know Reese Taylor as Reese Taylor. Most people just call Reese Coach Taylor. That's because Reese and Coach Taylor is from right here in Waco. Grew up going to Waco High School, played varsity sports, went on to find a passion, a love for coaching. You see, for Coach Taylor, coaching was much more than just that individual activity, the accolades, the talent, the sporting, the games. Coaching was bigger than that. It was about cultivating this next generation of youth, those next generation of leaders who are going to go out there and make a difference. Because when you play sports, you learn some of those side skills, some of those tangible skills that help you advance in life. And Coach Taylor knew that. Focus, drive, leadership, teamwork, all of these skills you learn from just playing soccer. That's why Coach Taylor loved the activity. And it showed. You're going to hear throughout the course of today's trial that Coach Taylor saw many successes, not only with the Waco High School team, but in the past as well. Coach Taylor had been coaching soccer at Waco High School for the past 6 years. Now here in Waco, the weather hasn't changed much in the past 6 years. Coach Taylor has been running the same drills, running the same scrimmages, running the same practices under the same heat for year after year after year with no incident. Yes, Coach Taylor was a tough coach. Yes, Coach Taylor pushed his students. Yes, Coach Taylor loved and cared for his students. And yes, he ran tough drills. But you're going to learn today that those drills didn't lead to Rory's death. Now, in order for you to understand how we got here today, I got to tell you about Rory Street's relationship with soccer. Now, Rory started playing soccer when she was just 4 years old. Out dribbling a ball, her mom got her into the activity, the plaintiff. You're going to hear that when her mom got her into the activity, well, Rory showed immediate talent. She was dribbling between cones, shooting goals. I mean, she was a natural. And so it only made sense that Rory started joining other teams, tougher competitions to build and hone in on those skills. Now, what was a fun activity to have fun with some friends and learn a new sport and learn some of those tangible skills, for Rory, that turned into later nights, less time with friends, not being able to feel like a normal kid. Yes, Rory was talented, but throughout the course of today's trial, you're going to learn that the relationship Rory had with soccer, it wasn't that great by the time Rory reached high school. Now, you're going to learn today that Coach Taylor was actually hired by the plaintiff. It was the plaintiff that recommended Coach Taylor start at Waco High School. It was because the plaintiff wanted Rory, her daughter, to have the best possible coaching, the best possible experiences, to get that scholarship and to go to college and play Division I soccer. The plaintiff pushed and pushed and pushed Rory for good reason. Like any other parent, you want your child to succeed. You want your child to do well. It's great if your child can go off to college on a football or on a soccer, or on a baseball scholarship, and also get a great education at the same time. For parents, that's a win-win, and folks, that makes sense. We don't fault the plaintiff for her actions. We're going to learn that when Rory got to high school, well, that relationship with soccer, it started to fade away. As plaintiff's counsel told you, Your Honor, you're going to hear from Aubrey. Aubrey's going to explain to you that at the end of high school, their junior year, Rory was stressed, feeling the pressure from parents, feeling the pressure from students, feeling the pressure from being this star athlete. Rory just wanted to be a normal kid, hang out on the weekends, do things with friends, and just relax without a schedule, without the pressure. Unfortunately, you're going to see that led Rory to using cocaine, a powerful, illicit, and illegal drug that has terrible, terrible side effects. And that's what brings us to September 7th of 2018. That practice was like any other practice. The kids got out of school. It was around 3:15 p.m. They hit the locker room and they went out to the soccer field. They started running, they started going through drills, and Coach Taylor that day had them play a scrimmage against each other. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The temperature was 105 degrees like every other day. Here in Waco, 105 degrees, that's just Tuesday. Yes, it was hot. Yes, they were running drills. But you're not going to hear from a single person today that Rory, Aubrey, or anyone on that field told Coach Taylor about Rory's condition, that Rory was struggling, that Rory was tired, that Rory somehow was acting unusual. Practice, it happened just like every other day. That day, like many other days, they ran that Burma road drill that plaintiff's counsel was telling you about, Your Honor. What plaintiff's counsel didn't tell you is that this Burma road drill had been run for decade after decade after decade. The plaintiff, Rory's own mother, ran the Burma drills when she was in high school playing soccer right at Waco High School. This drill wasn't unusual. That's what coach after coach had been running for decade after decade after decade. Nothing was out of the ordinary. Then, all of a sudden, Rory collapses, falls to the ground, and has a seizure. It wasn't until 2 days later that we realized why. Rory had ingested cocaine before practice. Now you're going to have the opportunity to review an expert report. This expert report has already been pre-admitted, Your Honor. You're going to see this expert report from a Spencer London. Spencer London is going to explain the side effects of cocaine and how cocaine affects the body under extreme conditions like heat and under exercise. Mr. London is going to explain through his report that when you use cocaine, it stops the body from being able to cool down like it normally would. And when your body can't cool down, you can overheat. And then temperatures like 105 degrees, mixing cocaine with exercise, ended up being deadly. Your Honor, this case, what happened has nothing to do with how Coach Taylor ran her practices. Rory's death was a tragic accident caused by Rory ingesting cocaine right before practice. Throughout the course of today's trial, you're not going to hear any evidence that Coach Taylor knew or should have been on notice that somehow Rory needed a break, needed water, or needed time down. No one knew what Rory had done until it was too late. For these reasons that at the end of today's trial, Your Honor, we're going to ask that you find Coach Taylor not responsible. Thank you.
Ms. Garcia, you ready to call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the plaintiff would like to call Aubrey Saracen to the stand.
Ms. Saracen, if you could turn on your camera, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Saracen, you've already been sworn in. So, Ms. Garcia, you may proceed.
Good morning, Ms. Saracen. Can you please introduce yourself and spell your last name for the record?
Yes, my name is Aubrey Saracen. Saracen spelled Saracen.
How old are you, Ms. Saracen?
I'm 18.
Are you currently in school?
Yes, I'm a senior in high school.
And where do you go to high school?
I go to Waco High.
Can you describe some of the activities you're involved in at Waco High School?
Sure. For the most part, I am I play soccer, and
Okay.
I am into just the usual stuff, high school.
Right. How long have you played soccer?
I've played pretty much my whole life. I've played all 4 years of high school.
Okay, and are you familiar with Rory Street, Miss Saracen?
Yes, I am.
How do you know Rory?
We were teammates in high school.
Did you know her in any other capacity?
Yeah, she was a really close friend of mine.
So you mentioned that you were teammates. Was that teammates in high school?
Yes.
And what kind of soccer player would you say Rory was?
She was amazing. She was probably the best, hands down, the best player on the entire team.
And ultimately, what happened to Rory?
Unfortunately, she died in that September, about 2 years ago now.
And so we'll get to that day in a minute in September. But first, I want to ask you a little bit about your coach. Who was your coach at Waco High School?
Reese Taylor, we just called her Coach Taylor.
Was Coach Taylor your coach for all 4 years?
She was.
So that also encompasses 2018, correct?
Yes.
Now, how would you describe Coach Taylor's style of running practice?
She was tough on us. She was very disciplined, was all about it, and she pushed us to the ultimate level every time.
What are some of the things she would make you guys do at practice?
She had us run scrimmages, and we would also do what these things called Burma roads. It's one of our drills.
Can you describe Burma Road for us?
Sure. Burma roads is basically you would run 30 yards, and then you would dribble the ball for another 30 yards, and then kick the ball into an open goal, and then run back those 60 yards on a bear crawl back 60 yards.
And where would Burma Road be located on that field?
Usually be right next to the practice field, some 20, 30 yards away.
Okay, and when someone says run Burma Road, what does that mean to you?
If we're running Burma roads, we're getting punished because we haven't done something that coach doesn't like. And so we get into, so we're running those for as long as she tells us to.
Okay, and I want to ask one more quick thing about Coach Taylor before moving on. Are you currently a starter on the soccer team?
I'm not. My position was taken by Coach Taylor's daughter, maybe during my junior year.
How did that make you feel?
I wasn't upset about it. I didn't really appreciate it because I felt like I was better than Coach Taylor's daughter. And so I feel like that position should have been rightfully mine.
Okay, now I want to turn your attention back to September 7th, 2018. Do you remember this day of practice?
I do. I could never forget it.
What was happening at practice that day generally?
In general, Coach had us run a scrimmage that day. So that meant that we were pretty much playing full force. It wasn't just drills. We were playing in full-on game.
How hot was it that day?
It was pretty brutal. It was at least 100 degrees.
Do you remember what time you started practice?
It was after school, so probably around 3:15, 3:30.
And you mentioned that the team was running a scrimmage that day. Is that what you did as well?
I did at the beginning of practice, but after a point in time, probably maybe an hour in, coach got really mad at me about missing some blocks or something, I couldn't remember. So I actually was doing Burma rows for most of practice.
And so you don't remember exactly why you were running Burma roads, is that correct?
That's correct. I don't remember what the reason was.
Your Honor, I have what have been marked as exhibits 1 and 2 for identification, and I'm showing them to opposing counsel. At this point, Ms. Saracen, I would like to direct your attention to exhibits 1 and 2. Do you have those in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Do you recognize these exhibits, Ms. Saracen?
I do.
And what are they?
These are aerial photos of the practice field. And the second exhibit is also an aerial photo of the practice field, but it's marking the practice field and where we do the drills.
And how do you recognize these exhibits to be what they are?
Oh, I've practiced on these fields all through high school.
All right, so turning your attention specifically to Exhibit 2, what area is marked by that blue box on the exhibit?
The blue box is the practice field where we were scrimmaging.
And what area is marked by the red box?
The red box is the area that I was running Burma Roads, I and Rory.
And do these photos together represent what the field in Burma Road looked like on September 7th, 2018, fairly and accurately?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I move Exhibits 1 and 2 into evidence, striking all previous marks of identification.
Without objection, Your Honor.
Admitted.
I also, at this time, Your Honor, would move to publish these exhibits.
No objection.
That's fine.
So, Rory, you just told us that you were, excuse me, Aubrey, you just told us that you were running Burma Road. Can you point out or describe where on this exhibit Burma Road is?
The box that's marked in red, that's where I and Rory were doing Burma Roads.
And where was the scrimmage occurring?
The scrimmage was occurring in the blue box.
And how far away would you say you were from where the scrimmage was occurring?
Probably about 20 yards.
Okay, we can take those exhibits down, please. So after you were running Burma Road, what happened next?
I heard, while I was running Burma Roads, I heard Coach Taylor yelling at the top of her lungs.
Who was she yelling at?
She was yelling at Rory.
Did you happen to hear what Coach Taylor was saying?
Yeah, she was basically going on about how Rory was playing sloppy and out of position, missing passes, and that she was not finishing wide open shots. So, I mean, it went on for a while. And then at one point in time, Coach Taylor said, go on and take your sorry butt to Burma Road. You're useless on the field, so you may as well just run until you pass out.
So before this happened, how long had you been running Burma Road?
I had been running for about 15 minutes.
Okay, and so when you're seeing all of this happen, what was your reaction?
Your Honor, as to relevance.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Sure.
Your Honor, I am asking this witness's reaction as it goes directly towards Coach Taylor's tough love type of coaching style. If allowed to testify, she will say that she wasn't surprised by Coach Taylor's reaction, as this was simply how Coach Taylor ran practices.
Your Honor, this witness's feelings, her surprise, her shock is not probative to the fact of today's case, Your Honor. Us trying to decide whether or not Coach Taylor did or did not follow the standard of care or should have reasonably foreseen that Rory was in some sort of danger, Your Honor. So pursuant to Rule 401, Your Honor, this is not relevant.
I'm going to agree with that and sustain that objection. I'm also going to ask you guys to push pause. One of our scoring judges got booted out. I'm going to try and readmit him real quick. Okay, sorry. He is back now. Thank you for understanding. Okay, so that objection was sustained.
Your Honor, I'm just going to ask that we move to strike that testimony from the record as well.
Agreed. That will be stricken from the record. The witness, could you remind me of your last name, please? Ms. Saracen? Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
If you could refrain from speaking about your, I believe, what was the question that you asked, Ms. Garcia? Sorry, with that break, I want to make sure I get this correct for the record.
No problem, Your Honor. It was what her reaction was to hearing Coach Taylor yell.
Okay. Ms. Garcia, if you could refrain from sharing your own opinions or reactions to what was going on in regards to Coach Taylor's yelling. Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
So at this point, Ms. Saracen, you and Rory are both on Burma Road. So I want to talk a little bit about what happened at that point. Was there anyone else with you two while you were at Burma Road?
No, there wasn't.
How far were the closest people to you?
Probably, I mean, all of them were all on the scrimmage field, so it's probably about 20 to 40 yards, 20 plus yards.
Now, how hot was it while you were running these drills in particular?
It was the same heat. It was hot. I still felt like 100 degrees.
Your
While
Honor,
you were running the
evidence at this point, Your Honor, just for the simple fact that we have a weather report that details what exactly the weather was at specific times during the day on September 7th, 2018. So the best evidence of what the temperature was is that document itself, Your Honor.
And I believe that's already been pre-admitted. Ms. Garcia, if you could just refer to that for
Yes, Your Honor. Yes. Would you like me to do that now, Your Honor, or moving forward?
It's up to you.
Okay, I will do it moving forward, Your Honor. Thank you. May I proceed?
Yes.
So, Aubrey, what happened while you guys were running?
Well, after about a few minutes of running, I noticed that Rory was really struggling. And was really unusually pale, actually.
What did she look like other
Um,
than pale?
she wasn't running that fast, and she just wasn't herself, really.
What did she say?
She told me she was feeling funny and complained about her chest hurting.
So
Objection,
you
Your
said,
Honor, at this point, I'm going to object to relevance. If I may be heard on this point, Your Honor.
Sure.
Today, we're here to decide whether or not Coach Taylor followed the standard of care and did what a reasonable person would have done with Coach Taylor's knowledge of the situation. Now, Ms. Saracen has already testified that no one was near them at the time that they were having this conversation, that they were running Burma Road, and that Coach Taylor was on the field next to them and wasn't even there to witness what was going on. So to talk about what Rory was saying at this point in time is not relevant because Coach Taylor didn't know that. And we're not going to hear any testimony that Coach Taylor knew or was told from Rory or Ms. Saracen of that fact for it to be probative, Your Honor. Your
Honor, may I respond?
Briefly, yes.
Your Honor, when these are foundational questions for the following line of question, if allowed to continue testifying, Ms. Saracen is going to say that she continued to remain 20 yards away, but was still able to see Rory's appearance from 20 yards away later down the line. At this point, Coach Taylor was the same 20 yards away and could have also seen Rory at this point in time. Further, Your Honor, Rory ends up being very close in proximity to Coach Taylor in a few minutes here. Aubrey is telling us what Rory looked like to her from a few feet away, the same few feet away that Coach Taylor ends up being to Aubrey. So this is very relevant to what Coach Taylor could have and should have seen on the day in question and what a reasonable person would have seen on that day.
Well, I think the objection was to what she was saying, not to what that she was observing, as you mentioned, from 20 yards away. So I'm going to sustain it as to what their discussion was if Coach Taylor was not able to hear that. But I will allow it as far as to what Ms. Saracen was observing.
Yes, Your Honor.
Move to strike that testimony from the record, Your Honor.
It's stricken.
Ms. Saracen, you mentioned that you were that Rory wasn't herself. Why do you say that?
Well, I mean, Rory is probably the toughest player we have on the team. I can remember a time when she went a whole half of the game with a broken nose. She's just that type of person. And that day, she just didn't look like herself. I mean, she wasn't running as fast as she usually would through drills. And she looked pale, and I've never seen her like that before.
And did you do anything because of these things that you noticed?
Not at that moment, and I wish I had.
Why didn't you do anything?
Relevance as to whether this witness wishes she would have intervened.
Sustained.
Ms. Saracen, why didn't you do anything?
Well, right around that time, as soon as I was about to say or do anything, Coach Taylor had looked over and saw what was going on with Rory and had reacted to that.
What did you see Coach Taylor do?
She started yelling at Rory again, and at this point she was really mad, and she talked about how her practice wasn't worth crap, and that she was lollygagging and goofing off, and that she was going to show her how special she was.
What happened after that?
Well, the team had been scrimmaging while we were running Burma Road, so at that point in time, she blew her whistle to stop the team from playing and told them to all line up in a single file line near the middle of the field.
And where was Rory while this team lined up?
Rory was, she went back to the practice field, and told her, and coach instructed her to stand about 10 yards away from the middle of the field where everyone was facing her.
And at this point in time, could you still see Rory clearly?
Yes, I was still on the field where Burma Rose was, but I was still close enough to see Rory.
And what did she look like to you at that point?
She was still pale, and she didn't look good at all.
So you mentioned that at this point, Rory is lined up across from the players. What happened after that?
At that point, coach rolled the ball to Rory, and she told everyone on the line that when she blew the whistle, Rory was going to start dribbling the ball forward, and then the first player in line was supposed to run at Rory and try to steal the ball using a slide tackle.
Did Coach Taylor blow the whistle the first time?
Yes.
What happened after that whistle blew the first time?
After the whistle blew, Rory started dribbling the ball kind of slowly, but she started dribbling the ball forward, and the first player came at her and slide tackled her to the ground.
And what happened after she ended up on the ground?
After that, Coach Taylor yanked her back up and put her back at the starting point and told her to go again.
After that first round, did Coach Taylor actually blow her whistle to start the second round?
She did.
What happened?
Rory went on to do the next, continued to dribble the ball. She went forward for 10 yards, and the next player came and slide tackled her again. And she hit the ground. And she got back, she was pulled back up and taken back to the starting point.
Did Coach Taylor blow the whistle a third time?
She did. And
how many times in total did Coach Taylor blow that whistle?
She blew it 15 times for Rory to go do this drill.
And after that 15th time, what happened then?
Well, the 15th time she slid, the 15 players slide tackled Rory, and she fell to the ground, and she began convulsing. She didn't get back up. And I mean, it was the scariest thing, but when she didn't get back up, that's when the paramedics were called.
What happened to Rory?
Rory didn't make it. It was too late by the time they came to her, and she was dead right there on the field.
Just a few more questions about that day's practice. Do you remember whether you got any water breaks that day?
I can't really remember if we did or if we didn't. But yeah.
How often would you usually get water breaks at practice? Do you remember that?
Sometimes we would get water breaks maybe after an hour of practice, and sometimes we didn't, just kind of depending on when coach told us to go get water.
So you mentioned that you were running Burma Road for 15 minutes and then the slide tackling drills happened. Do you remember if you got a water break at any point during that time?
I can't remember if I did.
And finally, whenever you did get a break typically, where did you have that break?
We had it on the field.
Was there any shade on the field?
No, there wasn't.
No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Cross-examination, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Ms. Saracen. How are you doing this morning?
I'm fine. Hello.
I want to start off by talking about what the conditions are like at a normal practice at Waco High School. Now, you all usually practice in August, right?
Yes.
Season runs from August all the way to about mid to late November.
That's correct.
Now, in the beginning of August, you all are practicing outside, right?
Yes.
It gets quite hot in August, wouldn't you say?
It does.
It's not unusual for it to reach over 100 degrees in August, right?
No.
You've been playing on this team for about 3 years before September 7th of 2018, right?
Right.
Now, during practice, you would all take breaks, right?
Right.
Sometimes you would take a break every hour,
Yes.
sometimes more,
Yes.
and sometimes less.
Yes.
Water was always provided.
It was there, yeah.
There was also an athletic trainer that was there as well.
Yes.
You knew that athletic trainer was there looking out for your best interest, right?
Yes.
Looking out for your health.
Yes.
Now, these are the conditions in which you had practiced year after year, right?
Right.
These are the conditions in which Rory practiced in year after year, right?
Yes.
These conditions weren't unusual.
No.
Now, I want to talk about what normally happens in a practice. Now, during practice, you all usually run drills, right?
Right.
Could be shooting drills,
Yes.
passing drills,
Yes.
fly tackling drills,
Yes.
header drills,
Yes.
and sometimes you would also run scrimmages.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned Burma Road on direct examination. Now, Burma Road is a drill that you all typically ran in practice, right?
Right.
You had ran Burma Road time and time again before September 7th of 2018, right?
That's correct.
That wasn't your first day running Burma Road.
No.
You also know that wasn't Rory's first day running Burma Road.
No.
In the past 3 years that you were on the team, there's never been a single incident where someone got hurt running Burma Road before September 7th of 2018.
I guess. Yeah.
And there hasn't been one since.
Yes.
Now, I want to talk about what happened on Burma Road on September 7th of 2018. As you said on direct examination, you were running this drill first, right?
Right.
You had been running this drill 15 minutes before Rory even started.
Right.
And you were feeling fine.
I mean, I was tired, but yeah.
You weren't suffering from anything like heat stroke.
No.
Now, when Rory came to the field, that's when you got a chance to actually see Rory close up, right?
Right.
And as you said, there was no one there with you.
No.
The coach wasn't nearby.
Correct.
And to use your words, the coach was actually pretty far away.
Correct.
And the athletic trainer also wasn't nearby.
That's right.
Now, you told us about some of these symptoms that Rory appeared to have, but you never told Coach Taylor about those symptoms, did you?
I wasn't going. There was no possibility, but yeah, I never did.
You never told the athletic trainer about those symptoms.
No.
You were concerned for Rory's health,
I was.
but you never said anything.
I didn't.
To the best of your knowledge, Rory never said anything either.
That's correct.
Like you said, Rory was typically a tough girl, right?
Right.
I mean, like you said, she played an entire soccer game with a broken nose.
Right.
You guys won that game.
I did.
And that's the attitude Rory typically brought to the field, right?
Right.
Play through the pain.
Right.
Tough it out.
Yes.
To the best of your knowledge, Rory never expressed any health concerns to Coach Taylor or to any athletic trainer.
Correct.
Now, I want to talk about what Rory did share with you. You knew that Rory had been stressed lately.
Yes.
Rory told you that she was feeling stressed.
Yes.
She was feeling pressure.
Yes.
Pressure from her parents.
Yes.
Pressure from colleges.
Right.
Pressure to be that star athlete.
Yes.
Rory told you she just wanted to be a normal kid.
She did.
Did Rory ever tell you that she used cocaine?
No.
You do know cocaine is an illegal drug, right?
Yes.
To the best of your knowledge, did Rory ever tell Coach Taylor that Rory was using cocaine?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Miss Saracen, did you know that cocaine could cause someone to throw up?
I didn't know that, but okay.
Did you know cocaine could cause someone's heart to race?
I didn't know that. I don't use it.
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Your Honor, the probative value of this testimony goes to show that the conditions that Rory was under, the symptoms she had, didn't align with heat stroke, but they aligned with cocaine, and cocaine being mixed with hot temperatures, the body being unable to cool down, Your Honor. This is probative testimony that goes to show what was going on and what symptoms Rory was facing or could have been facing at the time. We're going to hear later further expert testimony about these symptoms, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Briefly, yes.
Your Honor, I would also add that this witness has no knowledge of the symptoms of cocaine. She has no personal knowledge to testify as to this information. And as opposing counsel just said, there is already an expert testimony report that is in evidence that fully details all of this. So this is just cumulative evidence.
Your Honor, this isn't cumulative. I'm asking this witness about her knowledge.
I'm going to sustain. She's already testified that she did not know about the side effects of cocaine.
Yes, Your Honor. Are you aware that Rory had an autopsy done after her death?
I heard about it, yeah.
Did you hear that Rory tested positive for cocaine on September 7th, 2018?
That was told. That's what I heard, yeah.
Now, I want to talk about why it is you're here today, Ms. Saracen. As you said on direct examination, you used to play for Waco's high school soccer team, right?
Right.
You were a starter.
I was.
That meant something to you.
It did.
You felt as though you were one of those outstanding midfielders.
Yes.
In that position, it meant a lot for your career, right?
Right.
For your future.
Mm-hmm.
But that was taken away from you, wasn't it?
Oh, what was?
That position was taken away from you. That starting position.
Yes.
It was taken away from you by Coach Taylor.
Yes.
That made you angry.
Yeah, I was upset.
It made you upset.
Yes.
You thought that decision was crap.
Right.
Now you're here testifying today.
Yes.
Thank you.
I was there.
No further questions for this witness at this time.
Ms. Garcia, do you have any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor, briefly. Ms. Saracen, did you ever tell your coach that you were experiencing any symptoms on September 7th, 2018?
No,
Would you have if you were?
I wouldn't have. No.
Objection as to relevance. Whether she would or would not have told her coach about those symptoms does not make it a fact in today's case whether or not Coach Taylor was not acting reasonable with regard to Rory on September 7th of 2018.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yes.
Your Honor, this is relevant testimony. Opposing counsel has just got up here and crossed Ms. Saracen about Rory's state of mind at that time and why she didn't, or if she didn't tell Coach Taylor about her symptoms. And if allowed to testify, Ms. Saracen will say that no athletes ever told Coach Taylor about their symptoms if they had them because Coach Taylor wouldn't listen. And that goes directly to whether or not Coach Taylor would have acted reasonably on the day in question.
Overruled. Overruled.
Ms. Saracen, I'll ask you again. If you had experienced any symptoms, would you have told Coach Taylor?
Not at all, no.
Why not?
Well, we all knew that complaining to Coach Taylor about not feeling well and being tired.
Objection, Your Honor, to speculation. We all knew this. That's testifying to someone else's state of mind, and that's speculation.
I'll rephrase, Your Honor.
Good.
Ms. Harrison, why would you never tell Coach Taylor about your symptoms?
Because I knew that complaining and not feeling well about would just make Coach more upset. You know, that's how it worked. You just getting worse punishment. And so, yeah.
Now, it was mentioned that Rory complained to you about her parents. How many times did she ever complain to you about her parents?
She mentioned it a couple of times that I can remember. Nothing unusual for a teenage to complain.
And just a couple more questions here. What effect did your coach's decision to replace you with her daughter have on you?
I mean, at that time it made me upset, but I mean, if I look right now, it doesn't make a difference because I still got that opportunity for my career, you know, in the future. I'm going to play at Rice, or thinking about moving to play at Rice. So it doesn't have an effect.
Does that affect your perception of your coach in any way?
No, I've had this perception before then.
No further questions, Your Honor.
There's no recross from us at this time, Your Honor.
All right. With that then, Ms. Saracen, you may be excused. Ms. Garcia, do you have anyone else you'd like to call?
No, Your Honor. At this time, plaintiff rests.
Okay. Mr. Okolo, first witness. Mr. Okolo, I think you're on mute.
Your Honor, before we begin, we would like to read in portions of Jordan Street's deposition. Jordan Street would have been a plaintiff's witness, Your Honor, and her deposition is available for us to read in for certain portions of that deposition.
Okay. Any objection, Ms. Garcia?
Your Honor, it was my understanding that plaintiffs get to call our witness by deposition if we choose, and at that point, defense counsel would get to cross on that deposition. I could be misunderstood, but I would object on that ground.
Your Honor, I guess maybe I'm a little bit unclear on how that necessarily works. If that is an issue, that's no problem. We can move on to our two witnesses, but it's my understanding that we could read in those portions, but if it's a problem, no issue.
Let me look at the pretrial order here. It says the witnesses to be called are as follows. Plaintiff Jordan Street may be called by deposition only. It does not cover whether defense may call them to cross-examine.
Your Honor, I do believe opposing counsel may be right on this point.
Okay.
So we can move on to defense's witnesses. My apologies, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff would like to call Coach Taylor to the stand.
Okay. Coach Taylor, if you could turn on your camera.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Good morning, Coach. How are you doing today?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. Can you please introduce yourself to the judge?
Yes, I am Reese Taylor. I'm the coach that you're talking about for Coach Taylor.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Coach?
Sure. Well, I'm Reese Taylor. I live in Waco, Texas. I'm 48 years old. I still live in Waco.
How long have you been coaching?
Coaching what? I've been coaching for 30 years, various sports.
And what sports have you coached?
I have coached basketball, softball, a little bit of track and field, soccer. I've dabbled in a lot of different areas.
What got you into coaching?
I have always wanted to be a coach. When I went to college, I knew I wanted to coach young athletes. I really have a passion for helping young people, helping build their character and helping them be the best they can be. So that was why I wanted to do that, and I've continued doing that since college.
Is that why you started coaching at Waco High School?
Yes, I went to Waco High School. I'm from Waco, and I love being back in my home roots and really instilling that in my hometown.
Why soccer?
I mean, soccer is a hard sport. I don't know if you've ever tried to play soccer, but the hand or the foot-eye coordination is difficult, and it's something that you get to see people push themselves. You see the players push themselves in a way that other sports just don't have. I think it's more challenging, but also there's a lot more dedication.
I want to talk about what a typical practice looks like at Waco High School. And when you're running a soccer practice, coach, what's going on?
Well, it depends on what time of the season it is. So we have preseason practices where we're really focusing on honing in on our players' skills. Those consist of mainly drill-focused practices where we're doing shooting drills, we're doing running drills, passing drills. We're really focused on honing in on those skills. And once we get closer to game time, we start doing mixed practices where we'll do scrimmages, reenact the games that we're going to be in, as well as the continuing to work in some of those drills to keep the skills that the players have developed.
And we've been hearing a lot today about a Burma road drill. Are you familiar with that drill?
Yes, I am.
What do you know about the drill?
Oh my goodness. Well, Burma Road has been at Waco High School since I went to high school here. All athletes run a version of Burma Road here. It's a drill that it really helps you get your focus back, really helps you to realize that you need to be focused, that you need to be working harder. So you sprint 30 yards, and then for soccer, you dribble the ball for 30 yards, you shoot into an open goal, and then you fall back and you do it again.
Is it safe to say that drill's been used for over 20 years?
Oh, at least, I mean, I did it in high school and I'm 48, so yeah, 30 years at least.
Prior to September 7th of 2018, did you have any trouble or any problems with students running this drill?
No, never.
Any parents ever reach out to you concerned?
No, it's been used for 30 years. No one's ever said anything.
I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about some of the precautions you might need to take as a coach when it comes to practicing. What does some of those precautionary efforts look like for you?
I mean, we always are looking out for our players. We're watching them. We're interacting with them during practice. We do have water available for them. And then we always have a trainer on the field. My trainer is constantly checking on my players, checking their injuries, and making sure that they're doing okay.
Is it important to have that athletic trainer there at practice?
Yes, it is.
What's the purpose of taking breaks in the water?
I mean, we want to make sure our players are able to kind of rest, rejuvenate for a few minutes. We don't want them pushing themselves constantly for 2 hours. And I mean, we recognize that it's hot, so they do need water every once in a while.
I want to talk about Rory Street. Do you know Rory?
Yes, I do.
How do you know Rory?
Rory was one of my players.
What can you tell us about Rory?
Rory was an excellent soccer player, always pushing herself on the field. She worked really, really hard all the time. She was extremely talented. Her athletic ability was amazing, and she was one of our best players.
I want to talk about what happened on September 7th of 2018. Remember that day, Coach?
Yes, I do.
How'd that day begin?
I mean, the day began like every other day did. I'm also a health teacher at the high school, so I went to work, went through the day. We had our practice immediately after school, like we always do. We were running a scrimmage. We had a game coming up, so we were running a full scrimmage, and a couple of the players were not putting in the effort that they always did. Rory was one of those players. They just seemed like they were kind of goofing off a little bit, not putting in the effort that I'm used to out of them. So I asked them to go run Burma Road.
Now, is Burma Road near the practice field?
Yes, it is.
I'm going to ask my second chair here. You mind putting up Exhibit 2 for us, Your Honor? It's already been admitted into evidence.
Mr. Okolo, while they're doing that, I just want to let you know I've confirmed that you can call Mr. or Ms. Street by depo should you want to. So I wanted to make sure if you want to reserve time for that.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Now, Coach, where were you scrimmaging at?
We were scrimmaging in the blue box on this picture.
And where was Rory and Aubrey running Burma Road?
They were running Burma Road in the red box.
Thank you for that, Drew. You can go ahead and take that away. While they're running Burma Road, did anyone ever tell you that they were tired?
No,
They had chest pains?
no,
That there was a health concern?
no.
What happened after they ran Burma Road?
Well, Rory, while she was running Burma Road, she still was not trying. It seemed like she wasn't trying. So I asked her to come on a different drill with the team.
What was that drill?
It was a side tackle drill.
Now, is a slide tackle typical in soccer?
Yes, it is.
Is anything about slide tackling unusual at all?
No, it happens all the time.
Is anything about practicing slide tackling unusual?
No,
During that slide tackling drill, did anything happen that would have caused you to have concern for Rory's health?
no, not until the very last hit where she didn't get up was the first time that I was concerned.
Prior to that, did any students raise any concerns?
No,
Did the athletic trainer there to watch out for health raise any concerns?
no.
What happened when Rory fell down?
When Rory fell down was when we called for help. We went over to check on her, and she wasn't doing well.
I want to go over with you some potential symptoms of heat stroke. Your Honor, I'm going to ask my second chair, with your permission, Your Honor, to publish expert testimony from the plaintiff's expert report. It's already been pre-admitted, Your Honor. This is page 2 that outlines the symptoms that expert witness believes are associated with heat exhaustion.
So this is from Exhibit 16 for this.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, Coach, did you see Rory having excessive thirst?
No,
Pale or red skin?
no,
Weakness?
no,
Headache?
no,
Nausea?
no,
Vomiting?
no,
Diarrhea?
no.
Muscle or abdominal cramps?
Didn't seem so. No,
Dizziness?
no,
Confusion?
no,
Fatigue?
no.
Profuse sweating?
Profuse? No. I mean, it was 100 degrees outside. We were all sweating, but it didn't seem profuse.
What about a rapid heartbeat?
No.
Thank you, Coach. With that, Your Honor, we have no further questions. Thank you for that, Drew. You can go ahead and take that down.
Ms. Christina Cross?
Ms. Taylor, I want to touch briefly on your coaching background. You said you've been a coach for 26 years, right?
I've been coaching, 30 years, something like that.
20 of those years have been soccer, right?
I coached for 20 soccer seasons, yes.
Yeah. And you've been the coach at Waco for 6 years.
Yes, I have.
And at Waco, you push your players.
I mean, everywhere, yes, I push my players.
You care for them like they're your own children.
Yes, I do.
In fact, your own child is actually on the team, isn't that right?
Yes, she was.
Now, you make sure that you stay up to date about best coaching practices, right?
Yes, I do.
You go to conferences sometimes.
Yes, I've been to conferences all over the state.
You attend conferences that are put on by the Texas High School Coaching Association for soccer, correct?
Yes, I believe that's what it's called.
And you went to the Texas High School Soccer Coaches Association meeting on June 15th, 2018.
I don't recall the date, but I'm sure I went to a conference in that year.
Is your memory exhausted as to what date that occurred on?
Yes, I don't remember the exact date.
Would showing you a PowerPoint from that conference help you remember the date?
I mean, if the date is that relevant, sure. I don't know why the date matters.
At this point, Your Honor, I would request that my second chair put Exhibit 11 onto the screen and direct the witness's attention to Exhibit 11 to refresh her recollection.
Mr. Okolo, any objection to that? It has not been admitted, so.
No, I do have an objection to the document, but for recollection purposes and refreshing the witness's memory, I have no objection for that.
Okay, so you're not offering this, you're just refreshing her memory, Ms. Garcia?
Correct, not offering it at this time, just for everyone's ease. I would request that we be allowed to put it on the screen.
The
Just
date
for now.
that important is, I'm assuming you're making a point about the specific date?
Right, because it occurred before the incident.
Okay. Go ahead.
Ms. Taylor, can you please go ahead and look at that exhibit and let me know when your memory's been refreshed?
My memory has been refreshed.
Okay, my second chair can take that down. So Ms. Taylor, you attended that conference on June 15th, 2018, correct?
Yes, I did.
And that conference talked about dealing with heat during practice, right?
Objection, Your Honor. All this is hearsay.
Your Honor, I'm not asking specifically what was said at that time. I'm just asking if she was taught best practices at that conference.
Your Honor, then I object to lack of foundation because this is all testimony based on hearsay. Opposing counsel is just trying to backdoor in hearsay that would be otherwise inadmissible.
To abstain, you need to have the foundation first, please, Ms. Garcia.
Ms. Taylor, you previously testified that you keep up in best practices, correct?
Yes, I do.
You're often taught these best practices at conferences.
I attend conferences, yes.
And at those conferences, they teach you about best practices for coaches.
I mean, they teach us about a lot of things. We go over a lot of different coaching topics.
So they teach you how to care for players in the heat.
I'm sure that's been covered,
This is
yes.
real hearsay.
Your Honor, again, I would argue I'm not asking what they are telling. I'm asking broad topic what she is taught and the topics that are taught.
Overruled.
So Ms. Taylor, again, they talk about dealing with players in the heat at these conferences.
Yeah, they do.
And sometimes these conferences talk about tackling drills.
Tackling?
Slide tackling drills.
Ms. Garcia, let's focus on what she learned at those conferences, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Taylor, you've learned at these conferences that it's important to keep your players in the shade if possible
Your Honor,
during breaks, correct?
This is opposing, there's lack of foundation. Opposing counsel is trying to backdoor in hearsay without using specific statements, Your Honor, trying to establish some sort of duty or some sort of standard of care from this document when it is hearsay.
So are you objecting to the testimony or the document?
Objecting to the testimony, Your Honor.
Your Honor, again, this is not hearsay. I'm asking about personal knowledge of this witness. I'm not asking what she was told and taught at this specific conference, and I'm not asking what is on that slide.
If I may, Your Honor, the only way this witness would have learned that if she heard that, Your Honor, opposing counsel is trying to backdoor in hearsay by trying to ask what she may have learned when knowing that there's inadmissible hearsay that can't come in.
Well, I believe she's trying to keep it away from what was said at the conference, but it is relevant what this witness knew or did not know on the day of the incident in question. So let's try and limit it to that and determine exactly what it is that Coach Taylor did or did not know.
Yes, Your Honor. So Ms. Taylor, Again, I'll ask you, it's important to keep your players in the shade during breaks in the heat, correct?
I mean, it's an option, yes, and shade does help, but it's not an absolute necessity.
But if possible, you should do that, correct?
I mean, if there's shade, yeah, you can send them to the shade.
And during these periods of high heat, it's important to give your players breaks
Yes,
to protect them from this heat, right?
yes.
Especially in Texas.
I mean, I wouldn't say especially in Texas. Have you been to Florida, Nevada, Arizona? Like, they're all hot.
I mean, but exactly, Texas is hot this time of year, correct?
Yeah,
Now, you choose to run your practices, or practices normally start when the school year starts, right?
yes,
That's around August.
yes.
But games are held at night during that time of the year.
I mean, they can be generally because we don't want to interfere with the school schedule of the students. We do try to schedule them after school hours. Yes.
Around September, your games are usually held in the evening hours.
After school, yes.
And they're held around that time until October. Then they're moved until in the afternoon.
I don't recall.
Your Honor, I'll move on, Your Honor. Let's talk about some of the techniques you, or at this coaches conference, I mentioned that it also talks about slide tackling. So I want to talk a little bit more about slide tackling. When a player slide tackles, they should go for the ball, correct?
Generally,
And they should wait until the opponent separates from the ball.
I mean that I wouldn't say that necessarily. Usually when you're slide tackling, it's in a type of game situation where you're making decisions in the course of play. So you're not going to sit there and wait and allow your opponent to have a better opportunity to continue advancing towards their goal. So, I mean, you're not trying to lay someone out flat, but you're not going to sit there and wait for the ball to be 6 feet away from a person. That's not how the game goes.
Right, but they shouldn't slide tackle the player when the player's foot is on the ball, correct?
I mean, they should be going for the ball. They're trying to win a game.
And ultimately, slide tackling could be dangerous, right?
I mean, anything could be dangerous.
Which is why coaches should tell players that they shouldn't slide tackle unless it's necessary.
I guess.
So coaches shouldn't instruct their players to just slide tackle for fun, right?
I mean, coaches should tell their players to do what they need to do in order to do what's best for their team in a game.
Is it your testimony that slide tackling another player for fun is what's best for a team in a game?
You're never going to slide tackle a player for fun.
Right. So coaches should not instruct players to just slide tackle for fun, right?
Sure.
Now, I want to talk about the day of Rory's death. That happened on September 7th, 2018.
Yes.
And you were running a full team scrimmage that day.
Yes.
Practice started around 3:15 or 3:30, right?
Yeah, after school.
And that's usually when practice would start.
Yes.
They would go for about 2 to 3 hours.
Yes.
And like you testified, or there was no shade on your field, correct?
No, there was not.
On September 7th, 2018, there were no tents up on the field.
No.
There could have been, though, if you had chosen to have one installed prior to that date, correct?
I mean, I guess there could have been if the school district had approved that, but we are a public school, and I'm a coach at a public high school. I don't make all of the decisions myself.
Right. I'm not asking you if you were the one who didn't put the tent up. I'm just saying there could have been a tent up on that field that day, correct?
I suppose it could have been, yes.
Now, let's talk about what Rory was actually doing at practice that day. Rory was your best player. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
In fact, she was one of the best players you've ever coached, right?
Yes.
And typically, she would appear superhuman at practice.
Yeah.
And that day in particular, you thought that she was slacking,
Yes, I did.
thought she was goofing off,
Yes.
not trying hard.
Correct.
But you never asked her what was wrong, did you?
No.
You did send her to Burma Road, however.
Yes, I did. I do that every time someone's not working hard.
You use it as a tool to teach your athletes a lesson.
I use it as a tool to get them to refocus and work hard.
And that's what you want to do with Rory that day, teach her a lesson, right?
To get her to refocus and work hard, yes.
But while she was running Burma Road, you still thought she was slacking off.
Yes.
You still thought she was being lazy
Yes.
and not trying.
Correct.
So you thought that you needed to discipline her in some other way.
I asked her to do a different drill to make her focus and work hard, yes.
To discipline her in some other way, correct?
Yes, to tell her that she needed to correct her behavior and work hard during practice.
So you then had her line up for this slide tackling drill we've talked about.
Yes, I did.
And this drill involved lots of physical contact.
I don't know what you mean by lots. That's kind of a weird term to use, but there was physical contact, yes.
You actually chose slide tackling because of the physical contact.
I mean, it's a difficult drill. It makes you have to really focus, hone in on your skill.
But Coach Taylor, you chose slide tackling in particular because of the physical contact.
I don't recall.
Coach Taylor, you gave a deposition in this case, correct?
Yes, I did.
I was there.
Yeah.
You were there.
Yes.
Your attorney was there.
Yeah, he was.
There was a court reporter there, correct?
Yeah.
Your Honor,
And-
I'm going to object to the line of questioning as relevance. If I may, Your Honor, we're not here today to discuss whether or not Rory was physically injured at the time during practice. So whether or not there was a physical altercation or anything physical happened at practice isn't probative, because we're not here to discuss whether or not Rory was physically injured. Opposing counsel and myself agreed and have stipulated that Rory died as a result of heat exhaustion.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Briefly, yes.
Your Honor, I am asking Coach Taylor if she chose this drill because of the physical contact, and that goes directly to whether or not a reasonable person in these circumstances would have chosen to do this to one of their players, to subject them to this drill because of the physical contact.
Are you alleging that the physical contact had anything to do with the heat exhaustion? I don't believe that's.
Yes, Your Honor. It's the groaning and the stumbling, and all of that led to some of the heart problems that Rory experienced along with the heat exhaustion.
Your Honor, it's my understanding that opposing counsel is arguing that Burma Road incident, the cardio involved with Burma Road, the running, the bear crawling, the shooting, that's what led to the heat exhaustion, not some sort of physical contact, Your Honor.
I'm going to sustain the objection unless you can point to something in the complaint, expert report, something that says that the physical contact had anything to do with the injury sustained.
Yes, Your Honor.
Testimony that might have hit the record.
I'm sorry?
Move to strike any testimony that might have hit the record.
Okay, stricken.
Now, getting back to this drill, Coach Taylor. So you instructed your players to slide tackle Rory one at a time, correct?
Yes, I did.
On your whistle.
Yes.
You blew your whistle the first time.
Yes.
One of your players then ran at Rory and tackled her.
Yes.
And she fell to the ground, correct?
I don't recall if she fell completely to the ground, that she kept going.
She stumbled, correct?
Sure.
This drill happened a second time.
Yes.
At this point, I just object to needlessly cumulative. The probative value of this testimony was that the drill happened, and we've got that, Your Honor. To go through this drill and all 15 times that the drill was run is needlessly cumulative for the purposes of this bench trial.
Sustained. Let's move along, Ms. Garcia.
In total, Ms. Taylor, this drill happened 15 times, correct?
Yes.
And same thing each time, right?
That my players and Rory were doing the slide tackling drill? Yes.
And this whole time they were out in the sun.
Yeah, practice is outside.
And to this day, Coach Taylor, you feel that you have no responsibility for what happened to Rory, correct?
Correct.
No further questions.
Free to direct, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Now, Coach Taylor, opposing counsel was asking you some questions regarding what time you all practice and what time you all have games. Do you remember that?
Yes.
The opposing counsel was asking whether or not you had the games and practices in the evening. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Would you be familiar with a weather report from September 17th of 2018?
Yeah.
Your Honor, this Exhibit 21 has already been pre-admitted. Permission to publish that for everyone's viewing. Go ahead and publish that for me, Drew. Thank you. Now, looking at this document here, do you mind scrolling down to about 3 p.m. for me, Drew? Awesome. Now, looking at this document, Coach Taylor, would it have made a difference if you practiced in the morning, in early afternoon versus the evening?
No, it would not.
Why not?
Because the temperature when we were practicing was 103 and the temperature around 6 p.m. 5:51, almost 6 p.m. was 105 and 6:51 was still 101. It was still over 100 degrees.
Is this weather typical?
Yeah, I mean, it's Texas. It's over 100 degrees in August every year. It's normal.
Has this been the same the past 6 years you were coaching at Waco High?
Yes.
Thank you. We have no further questions. Go ahead and take that down for me, Drew. And with Your Honor's permission, we ask that Coach Taylor be excused.
Ms. Garcia, do you have any recross?
No recross, Your Honor.
Maybe excuse Coach Taylor.
And Your Honor, thank you so much, Coach Taylor. And Your Honor, at this time, we would like to read in some of those read-ins from Jordan Street's deposition.
Okay.
With Your Honor's permission, I'm just going to ask that my second chair, Drew, come on the screen so he will play the witness and I'm going to read the question and he'll read the answer from the deposition.
Okay.
Thank you, Drew. Starting on page 3, line 1 for opposing counsel's reference. Were you at practice that day?
Yes, I was at practice that day.
Sorry, just go to page 3, line 1.
No, I was at work.
So do you have any information or knowledge about what happened that day?
No, other than what I've heard from others about what happened, but I didn't see it.
Going down to line 20 on that same page, when did Rory start playing soccer?
Oh gosh, when she was little, 4 or 5 years old, I went and signed her up to get her started with just being out and being athletic and being around other kids. But she took right to it and never looked back. Before you knew it, we were spending weekends driving all over Texas to soccer tournaments. And the next 12 or so years were just kind of a blur. Soccer tournaments, soccer practices, soccer camps, soccer everything.
Just for the court's reference, Your Honor, I apologize. We missed that first question. This is Jordan Street, the mother, the plaintiff in today's case of Rory Street. Now, page 4, line 14. Was soccer something the two of you shared?
You know, I played soccer in college, so I already loved the game. but I didn't care what sport it was. I just loved having a kid that was into sports of any kind. I loved getting up on the weekends when she was little to kick the ball in the backyard and let her try to dribble it past me. I love talking about games and strategy. It brought back so many memories of my playing days, but this was even better because it was my kid and it made her happy. By the time Rory was in high school, we even had a favorite team, West Ham United. And we would root on together every weekend during the English Premier League season. We loved going to T-Bone's barbecue to watch matches, and I thought it would be forever glowing bubbles.
Going down to page 5, line 12. Did you push Rory to be an athlete?
No, I had quite my junior year of college because I had a pretty serious injury during a game, and an opposing player side tackled me. I'm sorry, I'm misreading the quote. Can you?
No worries. We'll ask it again, Drew, just for clarity. Page 5, line 12. Did you push Rory to be an athlete?
I don't know if I would use the word push. I encouraged Rory to work hard at sports and at everything else in her life. I taught Rory to never show weakness and to never complain. I wanted her to be tough, to play through the pain, because that's what makes a champion. Rory was tough because I made her tough.
Did you ever hold Rory back in school?
We did just 1 year. We held her back in the 7th grade so that she could get bigger and faster, with which we thought would give her an advantage in high school playing against younger kids. And I know that sounds a bit crazy, but it's actually pretty common now. College is expensive, and we wanted to give Rory the best chance we could at getting a scholarship. Hell, Rory might have even been good enough to go pro. I certainly saw the possibility and encouraged Rory to keep the option open.
Did you have to stay on top of Rory to make sure she was practicing and keeping up with exercising?
Not any more than any other parent or teenager. Rory seemed sometimes wanted to goof off instead of following Coach Taylor's non-practice exercise routines. And I would have to remind her of what soccer means for college and maybe a pro career.
Skipping to that next page, Drew, number 13, page 7, line 19 through 20. When you were playing soccer at Waco High School, did you ever run Burma Road?
Hell yeah, we did. I remember doing that when we were dogging it, or if we weren't in the correct position or something. Coach would send us off to run the Burma Road. But I'll tell you this, none of my coaches ever made me or any other kid keep going when it was obvious that we were exhausted. You know, discipline is one thing, but that is just dangerous.
Page 9, line 11. Did you have any part in Coach Taylor being hired?
Yes, I was instrumental in getting Coach Taylor hired. Wish I hadn't been, but I was.
Page 9, line 14. Why did you want Coach Taylor?
We wanted a winning coach. I wanted Rory to be coached by a winner, and that was what we wanted. And we thought that Coach Taylor was the right person for the job. Looking back now, it obviously was a huge mistake on my part.
Nothing else from the deposition of this witness, Jordan Street, Your Honor. I would like to move to our second deposition, Your Honor, for read-ins. We're not able to call this witness live, but Jess Merriweather would like to be called by deposition.
One moment. Is there anything that you would like to read in the form of a recross, I guess, or a cross of Ms. Street? Ms. Garcia?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Permission to proceed with this direct examination, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Starting on page 2, lines 6 through 7. Good morning. Would you please state your name for the record?
Hello there. My name is Jess Merriweather.
Where do you live?
I live in Waco, Texas.
How long have you lived in Waco?
Just a couple years now. I grew up in Houston. Then I went to Texas A&M for undergrad, and then I got a master's degree in sports training from A&M as well. After that, I worked a couple years at another high school in College Station before I got a job here at Waco High.
What is your job at Waco High?
I am an athletic trainer, and I also teach health.
What is the job of an athletic trainer?
We have various teams and activities at the high school that involve some level of physical activity and competition. everything from football to soccer to volleyball to cheerleading and drill team. And as a trainer, I would work with students that participate in these activities to keep them healthy and in shape, and to treat any injuries that they might have.
Do you attend practices?
Yes, depending on what time of year it is, it may be football or soccer or something else. But there is always a trainer at any official practice for our various athletic teams.
Did you do any athletic training while you were at Texas A&M?
That was the whole point of the program. I worked with football players, track athletes, basketball players, and more while completing my master's degree in sports training. So it isn't like the job at Waco High was the first time that I've ever done athletic training.
Your Honor, at this time, we would like to tender Jess Merriweather as an expert specifically in athletic training.
Ms. Garcia?
Your Honor, we would object in that we don't have any CV from Ms. Merriweather. The only testimony we have heard is the testimony that's been said today, and we don't know her full history on this.
Your Honor, we agree that there's no CV present for Ms. Merriweather. However, we do believe the testimony in the record is sufficient for 702, Your Honor, for expert testimony foundation. We believe the foundation has been laid enough to qualify Ms. Merriweather as an expert, as she received a bachelor's and a master's degree in athletic training and has worked in the field for numerous years, Your Honor.
I'm going to go ahead and sustain the objection just because we do not know whether or not she was this, is this a she? Sorry. Whether this witness was properly designated under Rule 20 and notification was given under Rule 26. So I'm going to go ahead and sustain, but you can continue with testimony as long as you're not trying to offer it as expert testimony.
Certainly, Your Honor. Do you have any role designing drills for practices?
No, that is all Coach Taylor.
Do you have any role in disciplining players?
No, that is all Coach Taylor as well. I am certainly there overseeing any on-field discipline that takes place, but I'm not directing that discipline or deciding who should be disciplined.
Going to page 5, line 3. Had you ever heard anything about Rory doing drugs, or did you ever see anything that would have led you to believe Rory did drugs?
On several occasions, I saw Rory lingering outside with smokers after lunch. There were a bunch of kids in that group of smokers and vapors that have the reputation for using drugs. So I wouldn't be surprised. So it wouldn't surprise me if Rory did too. Drugs are a problem at every level of sports, from high school through the pros. And it isn't just steroids. In fact, every year I give a lecture at the local Kiwanis Club chapter meeting about the negative effects of using drug abuse on young athletes. Several of our players came to hear that speech, but Rory never came.
What about cocaine? How does that affect an athlete?
Cocaine is particularly dangerous. It killed Lenny Bias and Don Rogers. Diego Maradona had a 20-year addiction, and it derailed his career. Darryl Strawberry and Dwight Gooden also come to mind.
Going down to number 14, Drew, page 8, line 8 for opposing counsel's reference. Were you at practice that day Rory died?
I was.
Did you see Rory running Burma Road?
I saw Rory over at Burma Road, but I wasn't watching her closely.
Did you ever see Rory during the slide tackling, Drew?
Again, I saw that it was happening, and I certainly saw parts of it, but I didn't watch it closely.
What were you doing while all this was going on?
I was taping another student's ankle about 40 yards away.
Page 8, line 18. At any time, did you see Rory stumbling, faltering, or slowing down in any way that would have indicated she was in trouble?
No, not at all.
Was Rory sweating hard?
I mean, yes, but everyone was, including me. It was a really hot day.
Did Rory ever say anything about feeling bad that day?
Nope, never said anything to me. And here's the thing, I'm there to take care of those players, and they know it. I'm kind of a combination trainer and guardian to the team. So they trust me, and I trust them to tell me if something was wrong or if they're hurting. Rory didn't say a word, and she would have. Rory was a tough kid, but she knew her limits and would let me or coach know when she needed water.
Are players allowed to get water when they need it?
Yes, all they have to do is ask, even if we weren't on a water break.
Page 9, line 21. Based on your knowledge and experience in the field of physical education and sports training, do you think Coach Taylor's means of disciplining Rory Street on the day in question was reasonable or appropriate?
I think that they were not unusual at all. Coach Taylor is a winning coach that pushed players, but Coach Taylor is also concerned about player safety. We talk about it all the time. So I would term Coach Taylor's conduct as an approach to discipline as orthodox in every sense of the word.
Thank you. We have no further read-ins from this deposition, Your Honor. Your Honor, before...
Ms. Garcia, do you have any read-ins?
Yes, very briefly, Your Honor.
Okay.
And at this point, I'd ask that my second chair turn on her video so that she can read in the answers. Like, turning your attention to page 10, line 6. Do you still work at Waco High?
Of course I do. I work with all the coaches, Coach Taylor included. In fact, Coach Taylor is the one that wrote me the recommendation letter for the promotion to head trainer. Again, Coach Taylor has a lot of faith in me and my abilities, and I just want to try to impress her.
And I think we skipped the question right before that, line 6. Do you still work at Waco High?
Yeah, I got promoted to head trainer about 2 months ago, so it's going great.
No further questions.
Your Honor, at this time, we have nothing further from the defense. However, I would like to raise a Rule 50 motion, Your Honor, and frankly, I should have done this before, but we're going to do it again here at the end of our case in chief. At this time, we don't believe that opposing counsel and the plaintiff has put sufficient evidence on the record that would allow the trier of fact, that being yourself, Your Honor, to decide and establish that Coach Taylor did not follow the standard of care or did not act reasonably as other reasonably prudent people would have on September 7th of 2018. Your Honor, we've heard testimony that this Burma road drill has been run for decades, over 20 years, Your Honor, without any incident. And many, many coaches have been in that program since, Your Honor. If we're looking at what a reasonable person would have done in that situation, a reasonable person would have done the exact same thing that coaches prior had done. Coach Taylor did nothing out of the ordinary on September 7th, 2018. And what the one thing we did hear was out of the ordinary was Rory Street had drugs in his system at that in her system at that time. And unfortunately, no one knew about that, Your Honor. That doesn't make Coach Taylor responsible in this case, Your Honor. We don't believe opposing counsel and plaintiff have established their burden of proof in today's case, and we ask for a directed verdict, Your Honor.
Ms. Garcia, in your response?
Yes, Your Honor. We would argue that plaintiffs have proven their burden in this case, Your Honor. Defense counsel argues that we have not demonstrated that Coach Taylor did anything out of the ordinary, but we have, Your Honor. Coach Taylor sent Rory to Burma Road, had her run it a couple times, and when Rory came back, we have demonstrated that Rory was sweating, Rory was fatigued, she was bent over, as Ms. Saracen told you. And despite that, Coach Taylor still had Rory engage in the slide tackling drill 15 times. Physical contact aside, Your Honor, she was still out there engaged in these drills while she was bent over, while she was exhausted. A reasonable person would not have done the same under those circumstances.
I'm going to deny the motion, especially since we've already had your response and evidence. Mr. Okolo, let's go ahead and proceed with closing if you're ready.
Your Honor, if we may, can we get a brief 2 to 5 minute recess before closing arguments?
Let me check the time, because I've just, given the nature of this, I've got to make sure everything keeps going for the next rounds. We can do, let's do a 2-minute break. Perfect. If you want to turn your cameras off or mute or however you want to do it. I'll leave mine on this so you can hear me, and I'll tell you when we're going to get started. In that time, I'll also calculate how much time you have for closing.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, that's about 2 minutes. Let's go ahead and turn your mics back on, and I'll tell you how much time you have for closing. Oh, you've switched places on my screen now. It confused me for a second. Okay, Ms. Garcia, you have a little bit over 9 minutes left total, including rebuttal. And Mr. Okola, you have 13 minutes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You ready, Ms. Garcia?
I am, Your Honor. Your Honor, at this time, I would like to request whatever remaining time I have for rebuttal after I'm done with this.
Okay.
May I proceed?
Yes, go ahead.
Unforgiving, intense, unrelenting, heartless. Your Honor, those words describe not only the Texas heat on September 7th, 2018, but they describe the defendant, Reese Taylor. Ms. Taylor is an educator and coach who is entrusted with the health and well-being of young students on a daily basis. And on September 7th, 2018, her negligence, her anger, and her utter disregard for the health of her students and her players caused the death of one of Waco's most promising young athletes, Rory Street. Now, as counsel for plaintiff, we bear the burden of demonstrating by a preponderance of the evidence that Ms. Taylor's actions caused Rory Street's death. Specifically, the verdict forms in this case raise two questions, which we have answered. First, did the negligence of Reese Taylor proximately cause the death of Rory Street? And if so, second, what percentage of the fault does Coach Taylor bear? Your Honor, the evidence today has shown not only that Reese Taylor proximately caused the death of Rory Street, but that she bears 100% of the blame for her actions. To demonstrate Reese Taylor's negligence on the day in question, we had to show that she failed to do what a person of ordinary prudence would have done in similar circumstances. Luckily, we don't have to look too far to find that standard. September afternoons in Texas heat are nothing short of unforgiving. That's why it was important for Coach Taylor to follow guidelines, but she didn't. Water breaks? You heard that Aubrey Saracen ran Burma Road for 15 minutes by the time that Rory joined her, and then the slide tackling drill took place. And you heard Aubrey tell you that she doesn't remember if she got a break at any point during that time. And you heard her say that sometimes they didn't ever get a break. In fact, Coach Taylor did the opposite of give breaks from the heat. She sent her star player to Burma Road because she was having an off day. A simple off day. She missed some passes. She couldn't get the goal in the net. So Coach Taylor thought she was slacking, and he decided to punish her, and the only way he thought he could punish her was by having her run Burma Road, inflicting physical pain. And when the performance on Burma Road wasn't up to par for Coach Taylor, she truly sought to inflict more pain. Again, ignoring guidelines and putting Rory right back on that field for the slide tackle drill. Now, the defense is going to try to argue that Coach Taylor had no way of knowing what was going on, that she was yards away from Rory when this was happening. But Ms. Saracen told you what was happening up close, that Rory was pale, paler than usual, that she was bent over, that she was struggling. And soon, Coach Taylor knew it too, because you heard from Ms. Saracen that Coach Taylor was right up in Rory's face during that slide tackle drill, that Coach Taylor yanked Rory up by her jersey, had her stand and wait for the next whistle, the whistle that would bring on yet another tackle, the whistle that would inflict yet more misery, the whistle that would make the unbearable heat and exhaustion even worse, the whistle that was blown by none other than Coach Taylor herself. 15 times. 15 times she blew that whistle and had a player slide tackle Rory in 100-degree heat. Her star player, her staggering star player. Coach Taylor might as well have been tackling Rory herself. Now, the defense wants you to think that this is Rory's fault because of that small amount of cocaine that was found in her system. But even the defendant's own expert report tells you that that amount was nominal. And they want you to think that the wobbly passes and the missed goals are all because of the drug. But don't forget, our expert report, which is already in evidence, Your Honor, shows that confusion, dizziness, and disorientation, all that Rory was experiencing, are signs of heat exhaustion. Now, the defense expert says that, remember, Rory complained of chest pain, Your Honor. And the defense expert can only say that that might be linked to other symptoms associated with cocaine use. The defendants can't even tell you when exactly Rory ingested that cocaine. She could have ingested it hours before practice or the day before practice. We don't know. Your Honor, the Texas heat is unforgiving, unrelenting, intense, heartless, just like Reese Taylor. The heat in itself is dangerous enough. Paired with a hot-tempered coach, with a short fuse and punishment at her disposal, the heat is deadly. It's a story that the Street family knows all too well, Your Honor. We now ask for the only verdict supported by the evidence. And I will get up here again on rebuttal and ask that you please find Reese Taylor 100% liable for Rory Street's death. Thank you.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes, go ahead.
May it please the court and opposing counsel. Rory Street died suddenly and without warning because she used cocaine before practice on September 7th, 2018. That illegal and powerful drug made it impossible for Rory's body to cool down in the heat. In turn, what would have been a routine and normal soccer practice into a tragedy. The most heartbreaking thing of it all, we didn't know Rory made that decision until it was too late. Folks, in order to really understand what happened to Rory, we told you at the beginning of the trial, you had to get to know Rory's relationship with soccer. Your Honor, throughout the course of today's trial, you've been able to hear how that relationship evolved from his relationship with his mother, inevitably to that relationship with soccer. You heard that Rory started playing soccer at 4 years old. Rory was a prodigy. She was passing, she was dribbling, she was shooting, she was doing everything that seemed like superhuman. She was great. As the years went on and years went on, Rory started getting better and better. What that meant, more time, more practice, more drills, less time kind of living out that dream of being a kid. You know, growing up, we all can think back at those times we might have been playing outside. I had a creek behind my house. I loved to catch frogs and toads and kind of just run around and have a good time. Unfortunately, growing up, Rory didn't have that same experience. Rory was in practice, learning and developing her soccer skills. And while we don't fault her mother for that, Rory's love for soccer didn't match the plaintiff's love for soccer. You heard from Rory's best friend, Aubrey, Your Honor. Rory was struggling. Her junior year of high school, she didn't know what she wanted to do. She didn't know if she wanted to go off and go to college or start a job, but one thing she did know is that she wanted to be a normal kid. She was tired of playing soccer, tired of living up to the expectations, tired of trying to get that premier scholarship her mother wanted her to have so bad. Like many high schoolers, it's kind of hard to have that conversation with your parents, right? Mom, I don't really want to be that star athlete. I want to be a chef. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a doctor, something different. Rory didn't have that conversation with her mom. We know in today's age, many teenagers struggle with how to deal with these problems. And oftentimes they turn to drugs. Your Honor, you've got an expert witness report in front of you from the defense, and it explains how Rory had drugs in her system on September 7th of 2018. Enough drugs to cause serious injury. Now, the expert witness is going to explain that what this impact cocaine has on the body is extreme when it comes to hot conditions. You see, the problem is cocaine, it gets the heart pumping. It doesn't allow the body to cool down as fast as it normally would. So when you're outside in heat and you're running, you're bear crawling, you're shooting goals, you're scrimmaging, you're heating up. But with cocaine in your system, you're not allowed to cool down as fast as you would need to be. When you can't cool down fast enough, your body starts to seize. Serious, deadly, fatal consequences can happen when your body can't cool down fast enough in the heat. Looking at September 7th, 2018, Your Honor, it's clear that's what happened. We know that practice, Your Honor, was normal. They started practice scrimmaging in August. The same time they started practice time and time again, year after year in Waco, Texas. It's hot in Waco, Texas, right? We understand that the heat is something that's a reality, but you take precautions. You have an athletic trainer there looking out for the student's health. You have water. You take breaks. You do what's necessary to make sure the students don't overheat, that they stay safe, and that they stay healthy. We heard that's exactly what happened on September 7th of 2018. There was water available. The athletic trainer was there. They took breaks. You heard from the athletic trainer today, Jess Merriweather, has a master's degree in athletic training, a bachelor's degree in athletic training, has been working at the high school for years. When we asked her whether or not she believed that Coach Taylor did something that was out of the ordinary, she said no. Yes, Coach Taylor's tough. Yes, Coach Taylor wants the best for her students, but nothing that was unorthodox. The same thing they've been doing year after year after year. If on September 7, 2018, nothing was different, Coach Taylor did nothing out of the ordinary, yet Rory still died, you gotta wonder why. What was different on September 7th, 2018 than every other day? Rory had cocaine in her system. That was different. Rory's body couldn't cool down as fast as it normally would in practice. That was different. Your Honor, it's clear. That cocaine mixed with that heat ended up in Rory's fatality. Now, Your Honor, opposing counsel, they want to make this case simple, when frankly, it's just not that simple. Opposing counsel wants you to believe that because it was hot, because Coach Taylor had them outside running drills and Rory seemed tired, that Coach Taylor should have automatically knew, stop practice, Rory's gonna be injured from heat exhaustion. That's not a reality, Your Honor. In fact, looking at the situation, Your Honor, it doesn't make sense how Coach Taylor would have known that doing the same thing she did time and time again, year after year, somehow would be problematic. Rory wasn't the only person on that team. No other student had an issue with heat exhaustion that day. If it was so simple that the student shouldn't have been out there, where are all the other cases of heat exhaustion? All the other students were fine. You heard from Aubrey. Aubrey told you she was running 15 minutes before on Burma Road before Rory even got there. She was fine. She was healthy. Yes, she was tired. Yes, she was sweating, but That's practice, Your Honor. Now, opposing counsel told you that Aubrey saw some symptoms in Rory that might align with heat exhaustion. Yes, that may have been true. Rory may have seen that. We're not going to say that Aubrey didn't necessarily see that. But it makes sense. It makes sense because you've heard time and time again that Rory was that tough player. You heard from Rory's mother. She said Rory was tough because I made her tough. Rory played through games with a broken nose and didn't complain. Time and time again, Rory was that tough player, doing what it took, trying to live up to those expectations. So no, she didn't complain. No, she didn't say anything to the coach. But if Rory didn't say anything to the coach, how was Coach Taylor supposed to know? Your Honor, we're here today to decide whether or not Coach Taylor should have known that her actions could foreseeably lead to Rory having heat exhaustion and dying on September 7th, 2018. The facts show that that's not the case. That drill had been ran year after year after year with no incident. We're going to ask ourselves, what would a reasonable person have done in that situation? Would a reasonable person have run that drill? Your Honor, there were many of reasonable people before Coach Taylor took over that school 6 years ago. That drill was running for the past 30 years. If we were to step back and say what a reasonable person would do, we would say they would do the exact same thing. They would run that Burma road drill that they've been doing every other year. I mean, Rory's mother told you back in the 90s she was running that drill with no incident. Your Honor, opposing counsel wants you to make this case so simple, but it's just not that simple. Drugs are powerful. They do things that we can't even imagine sometimes. Whether it be heroin, cocaine, bath salts, marijuana, what have you, they have terrible side effects, especially in teenagers. Had Coach Taylor, the athletic director, or even Aubrey known that Rory took those drugs before practice, they could have done something. But they simply didn't know. Because they didn't know, they could not have foreseen those actions, their typical, normal, daily routine actions, causing injury to Rory that day. Your Honor, this case is just not that simple. Rory never expressed those concerns to Coach Taylor. Aubrey never expressed those concerns to Coach Taylor. The athletic director was there watching, observing. The person in charge of the health of the students saw nothing. Is it reasonable that Coach Taylor should have saw something that no one else could have saw? No. Your Honor, this case isn't about the actions of Coach Taylor. It's not about the drills that Coach Taylor was running. It's about the cocaine that was ingested before practice that day. It's for these reasons, Your Honor, we're going to ask that you find Coach Taylor not responsible. Thank you.
Ms. Garcia, you have about 2.5 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, the defense wants you to believe that Rory died suddenly and without warning. But the evidence shows the contrary. The evidence shows that it was a slow and painful struggle. Discipline gone too far. You heard from Aubrey that when she was standing 20 yards away from Coach Taylor and Rory, that she saw Rory bent over, hands on her hips, struggling. Coach Taylor was right next to her. There is no way Coach Taylor wouldn't have seen Rory struggling. Any reasonable person would have seen Rory struggling at that moment in time. Next, defense says that this day was normal and routine. Yes, practicing in 100-degree heat was normal and routine. Sending a player to Burma Row, that was normal and routine. But then sending your player to a slide tackling drill to continue standing in the heat after they are struggling, after they have put their hands on their hips, and not giving them a water break, there is nothing normal and routine about that, Your Honor. Next, defense has talked about the personal trainer, Jess Merriweather. And they want you to believe that because she has a bachelor's and a master's that she's able to say that Coach Taylor was being reasonable that day. Your Honor, Ms. Merriweather will say whatever she can that is positive about Coach Taylor because Coach Taylor got her promotion. She's indebted to it. Her testimony cannot be trusted. And the defense also went on and on about Rory not being able to cool down fast enough because of that cocaine. Rory wasn't able to cool down fast enough because there was no shade. There was no water break. And because she was subjected to cruel and unrelentless punishment by Coach Taylor. And the defense cannot tell you that Rory ingested that cocaine before practice. Therefore, Your Honor, we now ask for the only verdict supported by the evidence in this case, that Coach Taylor is 100% liable for Rory Street's death. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Okay, if my scoring judges could go ahead, everybody remain in the room, please. If my scoring judges could go ahead and send your ballots in. And as soon as I know that those are all received, then I will kick everybody out of the room so we can let the new group in.